Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest mistakes we make in love is waiting for someone who has no flaws, when the person who could change our entire life may already be standing in front of us. Imperfect, complicated, stubborn, emotional, sometimes difficult to understand, and yet somehow perfect for us. We spend years searching for the flawless person, only to discover that real love was never about finding someone without weaknesses. It was about finding someone whose weaknesses we could understand, whose dreams we could protect, whose silence we could sit beside, and whose heart made us feel that, somehow, after everything life had put us through, we had finally come home. Think about that for a moment. We live in a world that teaches us to compare everything. We compare houses, careers, appearances, lifestyles, photographs, achievements, and even relationships. We look at someone else's partner and think, why doesn't my relationship look like that? We see the beautiful photographs, the perfect smiles, the romantic vacations, the carefully chosen words, and we begin believing that somewhere out there is a woman who will never disappoint us, never misunderstand us, never get angry, never become insecure, never have a bad day, and never make a mistake. But that woman doesn't exist, and neither does that man, because love was never designed for perfect people. Love was designed for real people. The woman you love may have habits that drive you crazy. She may overthink things you think are simple. She may become quiet when you wish she would speak. She may ask questions when you wish she would simply trust. She may remember things you have completely forgotten. She may get emotional about something that seems small to you. She may have fears she doesn't always know how to explain. And sometimes she may hurt you without realizing how deeply her words affected you. But here's the question, here's the question that mature love asks: can I see the person beneath the behavior? Because anyone can love someone when everything is easy. The deeper question is whether you can still see her value when she is having a difficult day. There is something beautiful about knowing someone's imperfections so well that they stop being reasons to leave and become parts of the person you have chosen to understand. Not because you accept disrespect, not because you tolerate cruelty, not because love means ignoring serious problems. No. Real love still has boundaries. Real love still requires honesty, accountability, and respect. But real love also understands that a human being cannot be reduced to their worst moment. One argument does not define an entire relationship. One mistake does not erase years of kindness. One difficult season does not mean the whole story is broken. Bean sings. Sometimes the person we love is carrying a battle we cannot see. She may smile in front of everyone and still go home wondering whether she is enough. She may appear confident while secretly comparing herself to every woman she sees. She may tell you she is fine because she doesn't want to become a burden. She may need reassurance but feel embarrassed asking for it. And sometimes what she needs most isn't another solution. She needs to know that someone sees her, really sees her, not the version she presents to the world, but the woman underneath it all. And perhaps that is one of the most powerful forms of love, being known without being rejected. Plain monde. Imagine a woman who has spent years believing she has to be perfect to deserve love. She learns to hide her insecurities, hide her tears, hide her mistakes, hide the parts of herself she thinks are unattractive or inconvenient. Then one day she meets someone who doesn't ask her to perform. He doesn't say, become someone else, and then I'll love you. Instead, he says through his actions, you don't have to pretend with me. Do you understand what that can do to a person's heart? It can heal something that years of compliments could never heal. Because there's a difference between being admired and being accepted. Anyone can admire beauty. Anyone can be attracted to confidence. Anyone can be impressed by success, but acceptance reaches deeper. Or acceptance says, I know you have fears, and I am not running away because of them. I know you have a past, and I am not using it as a weapon. I know you have weaknesses, and I am not keeping a list of them so I can defeat you during the next argument. I know you are human, and I still choose you. That is powerful. And gentlemen, if there is a woman in your life who loves you, challenges you, worries about you, believes in you, gets annoyed with you, laughs with you, cries with you, and still chooses to stand beside you after seeing the parts of you that nobody else sees. Don't become so focused on what she isn't that you forget everything she is, because sometimes we become experts at noticing what is missing while becoming blind to what is present. We notice that she gained a little weight, but forget the nights she stayed awake worrying about us. We notice that she doesn't dress the way she used to, but forget the way she stood beside us when we were struggling. We complain that she doesn't say romantic things anymore, while forgetting how many times she showed love through small actions that we never acknowledged. We remember the one dinner she forgot, but forget the 100 meals she prepared. We remember the one time she lost her temper, but forget the countless times she swallowed her own frustration because she didn't want to hurt us. This is where relationships quietly begin to die. Not always because love disappears, but because appreciation disappears. And when appreciation disappears, familiarity can become dangerous. The person who once felt like a miracle begins to feel ordinary. The voice that once made your heart race becomes background noise. The hand you once couldn't wait to hold becomes something you reach for without even thinking. The woman you once prayed to find becomes someone you criticize for not being enough. But listen carefully, familiarity should never make you careless with something precious. Lance, there was a time when you didn't know her. There was a time when you would have given anything just to have the conversations you now take for granted. There was a time when you wondered what she was thinking, what made her laugh, what frightened her, what she dreamed about at night. And now you may sit across from her every day and assume you already know everything. You don't. People continue changing, hearts continue evolving, dreams change, fears change, priorities change. The woman you married 5 years ago may not be exactly the same woman today, and neither are you. So love cannot simply be built on who you were when you first met. It has to be rebuilt through curiosity, attention, patience, and choice. Ask her what she is afraid of now. Ask her what she still dreams about. Ask her what she wishes you understood better. Ask her what makes her feel loved. Ask her what has been heavy on her heart lately. And then when she answers, don't immediately defend yourself. Don't turn her pain into an argument. Don't start collecting evidence for why she's wrong. Just listen. Lean. Sometimes the most romantic words you can say are not "I love you." Sometimes they are "Tell me." I want to understand, because love is not only about holding someone's hand. It is about learning the language of their heart. And maybe the woman who is perfect for you will not always make your life easier. Maybe she will challenge your patience. Maybe she will force you to confront parts of yourself you would rather avoid. Maybe loving her will teach you that being right is not always more important than being kind. Maybe she will teach you that strength isn't always loud, that vulnerability isn't weakness, and that sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is look at the woman he loves and say, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. How can I make this right?" That isn't losing power. That is becoming worthy of love, because the goal of a relationship is not to find someone who never challenges you. The goal is to find someone whose presence makes you want to become a better version of yourself without making you feel that you have to become someone you're not. And that is where we begin to understand what it really means when we say she's not perfect. She's perfect for me. It doesn't mean she never hurts you. It doesn't mean you never disagree. It doesn't mean every day feels like a romantic movie, your currency. It means that somewhere beneath the imperfections, beneath the arguments, beneath the habits that sometimes drive you crazy, there is a connection that reminds you that this person matters. She matters not because she completes every missing piece of your life, but because together you have built something that neither of you could have built alone. And the older you become, the more you realize that. The older you become, the more you realize that the greatest treasures in life are rarely perfect. They are precious because they are real, and a real relationship is not measured by how few problems you have. It is measured by how you handle the problems when they come. There will be mornings when you wake up irritated with each other. There will be evenings when one of you is exhausted and the other doesn't understand why. There will be moments when you say something you wish you could take back. There will be seasons when work, money, family responsibilities, aging parents, children, distance, or simply the pressure of everyday life puts a weight on both of you. And in those moments, love stops being a feeling and becomes a decision. You decide not to humiliate each other. You decide not to keep score. You decide not to bring up every mistake from the past just because you're angry today. You decide that the person standing in front of you is not your enemy. You remember that you are supposed to be on the same side. You land. That sounds simple, but it can change an entire relationship. Jans, because one of the most destructive habits in love is turning disagreement into competition. Suddenly, nobody is trying to understand anymore. Everyone is trying to win. She wants you to admit she is right. You want her to admit you are right. And by the time the argument ends, one person may have technically won the conversation, but both people have lost something more important. Median connection. You have to learn when to stop proving your point and start protecting the relationship. Bane, there is a sentence every couple should remember. We can solve this without destroying each other. And think about how powerful that is. You can be angry without becoming cruel. You can disagree without becoming disrespectful. You can need space without making the other person feel abandoned. You can tell the truth without using the truth as a weapon, and when you learn that, something changes. Arguments become conversations, differences become opportunities to understand each other, mistakes become opportunities for growth instead of ammunition for revenge. But there is another side to this. Blamed. Sometimes we don't appreciate someone because we are too busy trying to change them. Men's, we look at the woman we love and create an imaginary version of her in our minds. We think if only she were more confident, if only she were quieter, if only she were more adventurous, if only she were less emotional, if only she dressed differently, if only she understood things the way I do. And slowly, without realizing it, we stop loving the woman in front of us and start negotiating with an imaginary woman who doesn't exist. Imagine how exhausting that must feel. Lane, imagine loving someone while constantly receiving the message, you would be better if you were different. And eventually a person stops feeling loved and starts feeling evaluated. And nobody should have to earn tenderness by passing a personality test. Of course, healthy relationships encourage growth. We should inspire each other to become stronger, wiser, kinder, healthier, and more emotionally mature. But there is a world of difference between saying, I believe in the person you can become, and saying, I cannot love you until you become someone else. Ben's one builds a person, the other breaks them. If she has dreams, encourage them. If she has fears, don't mock them. If she has weaknesses, help her where you can. If she makes mistakes, tell her the truth with compassion. And when she succeeds, don't compete with her success. Celebrate it, because love should never make someone smaller so that you can feel bigger. Mon, the strongest relationships are not built by two people trying to control each other. They are built by two people who feel safe enough to grow beside each other. And sometimes growth means learning to communicate differently. Maybe she doesn't need you to fix everything. Maybe when she tells you about a difficult day, she doesn't want a 5-step solution. Maybe she wants your attention. Maybe she wants to feel that her emotions are safe with you. And perhaps you have needs she doesn't immediately understand either. Maybe you need quiet after a difficult day. Maybe you need encouragement. Maybe you need affection. Maybe you need to know that your efforts are noticed. Sheen, this is why love requires communication, not mind reading, not guessing, not expecting the other person to magically know what you need. Say it, tell her, and listen when she tells you. Banned, because resentment often grows in the space between an unspoken need and an unmet expectation. You think she should know. And she thinks, why didn't he tell me? And both people become disappointed over something that could have been solved with one honest conversation. The woman who is perfect for you may not automatically understand everything about you. And you may not automatically understand everything about her. That's okay. You're not supposed to arrive fully fluent in each other's hearts. You're supposed to learn, and learning someone takes time, years sometimes. You learn the little things. You learn when she needs a hug and when she needs space. You learn what kind of silence means she's peaceful and what kind means something is wrong. You learn which memories make her smile. You learn which subjects are painful. You learn how she behaves when she's scared. You learn how she receives love. And after years of paying attention, you may discover something remarkable. You don't just know her habits. You know her heart. That kind of intimacy cannot be purchased. It cannot be manufactured for social media. It cannot be replaced by physical attraction alone. Band physical attraction may bring two people together, but emotional safety is what allows them to stay together. And emotional safety is built in tiny moments. Lamented, it's built when she tells you something embarrassing and you don't laugh at her. Mand, it's built when she makes a mistake and you don't use it to make her feel worthless. Blend, it's built when she is vulnerable and you don't later throw her vulnerability back at her during an argument. Meant is it's built when she succeeds and you are genuinely proud of her. Land, it's built when she walks into the room and even after all these years you still look up. Fans, maybe that's what she secretly wants, not perfection, presence. She wants to know that you still see her, and maybe you've forgotten how powerful that can be. Lan, look at her sometimes without asking what she can do for you. Look at her and remember everything you've survived together. Remember the early days when you didn't know whether this relationship would last. Remember the first difficult season you made it through. Remember the nights you laughed until your stomach hurt. Remember the moments when one of you was broken and the other stayed. Those memories matter. Dan, because relationships are not built only during spectacular moments. They are built in ordinary Tuesday mornings. In grocery stores, in hospital waiting rooms, in long drives, in quiet dinners, in arguments followed by apologies, in cups of tea, in checking whether the other person got home safely, in remembering how they take their coffee, in sending a message just because something reminded you of them. Love becomes extraordinary through ordinary acts repeated over time. And here's something many people understand only after they have lost someone. You rarely miss the grand gestures as much as you miss the little things. Then you miss the voice calling your name, you miss the way she laughed at your jokes, even the terrible ones. You miss the sound of her footsteps, you miss the little questions. Did you eat? Are you okay? Benjamins, where are you? Text me when you get there. At the time, though, text me when you get there. At the time, those questions can feel ordinary. Man, later they can become priceless. So don't wait for absence to teach you the value of presence. Bend, if she is beside you today, appreciate her today. If she supports you today, thank her today. Bonds, if she makes your life warmer today, tell her today. Remember, we are often generous with appreciation at funerals and stingy with appreciation while people are still alive. And we write beautiful words when someone can no longer hear them. We tell everyone how special they were after we can no longer tell them directly why. Why do we wait? And why do we assume people know? Tell her what you admire. Tell her what you appreciate. Ling, tell her that you notice the things she does. Tell her that her presence has made your life better. And don't only tell her when she's dressed beautifully or when she does something for you. Tell her when she's exhausted. Tell her when she doubts herself. Tell her when she feels old. Tell her when she thinks she's not enough. Tell her, I don't love you because you're perfect. I love you because you're you. And there is extraordinary power in that sentence because it removes the pressure to perform. And as the years pass, that may become one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being. The freedom to be fully human in your presence. Plans. But there is something even deeper we need to understand about choosing someone. Fans, because when life becomes difficult, you may suddenly discover that love isn't always about how strongly you feel. Sometimes it's about how deeply you understand the person you're standing beside. Belinda, you may see her flaws differently after 10 years than you did after 10 months. At first, her stubbornness may have annoyed you. Months later, you may realize that same stubbornness is part of the strength that helped her survive difficult moments. Gemline, at first, her sensitivity may have seemed excessive. Later, you may understand that her sensitivity is also why she notices when you're hurting before anyone else does. Jens, at first, you may have wished she worried less. Later, you may recognize that her concern came from caring deeply. Sometimes the very quality that irritates you is connected to the quality you eventually learn to treasure. That's why maturity changes the way we see love. Ambiance. When you're young, you may ask, does this person make me happy? As you mature, you begin asking better questions. Can we grow together? Can we be honest with each other? Blends, can we repair after conflict? Can we protect each other's dignity? Can we still be kind when we're disappointed? Can we face difficult seasons without turning against one another? Can I become more myself with this person instead of less? Those questions lead somewhere deeper. Because the right relationship doesn't merely give you someone to love. It gives you someone with whom you can build a life, and building a life is different from building a fantasy. Being a fantasy has perfect sunsets, a life has traffic, a fantasy has romantic dinners, a life has dirty dishes. Jean's a fantasy has beautiful photographs, a life has sickness, bills, responsibilities, disappointments, aging, and unexpected problems. And yet somehow a real life shared with the right person can be more beautiful than the fantasy you imagined. Men's because when you have someone who stays, the ordinary becomes meaningful. Being a simple meal tastes different when you know someone made it because they care. A long drive feels shorter when you're talking about your dreams. Then a difficult day becomes easier when someone puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "We'll get through it." And that word matters. We, not you, not me. We, that is the language of partnership. And perhaps the greatest sign that she's perfect for you is not that she makes every problem disappear. Means it's that when problems arrive, you don't feel like you're facing them alone. Domland, because life will test every relationship eventually, time will test it, stress will test it, money will test it. Mijriand, Meligi idleness will test it, failure will test it, success will test it, age will test it. And when those tests come, the question won't be whether she was perfect. Bind link. The question will be whether the two of you learned how to remain human with each other. Because there will come a day when beauty changes, there will come a day when energy slows down. There will come a day when the mirror tells a different story. And on that day, if you built your relationship only on appearance, you may discover that you built it on something temporary. Mamjins, but if you built it on friendship, respect, trust, laughter, loyalty, shared memories, and genuine tenderness, something extraordinary happens. Bindest. You begin to see beauty where younger eyes might not. You see beauty in the wrinkles created by years of smiling. You see beauty in hands that have worked hard. You see beauty in the face that has aged beside yours. You look at her and think, we really lived, and maybe that is the kind of love worth fighting for. Not the love that looks perfect from the outside, the love that becomes more valuable because you've lived through storms together, the love that has scars, being the love that has history, the love that can look at imperfection and say, I know, Minjira Eberu Menjana. I've seen your difficult days, I've seen your difficult days, I've seen your fears, I've seen your mistakes. Benda, I've seen you at your strongest and your weakest, and after everything I've seen, I still choose you, And when you can say that honestly, you are no longer chasing perfection. You are choosing something much rarer. Amayans, you are choosing a person, and sometimes the most beautiful love story isn't about finding the perfect woman. Beings, it's about finally becoming wise enough to recognize the imperfect woman who was perfect for you all along, because sometimes the person we keep searching for is not somewhere out there. She is already beside us, waiting for us to stop comparing, stop demanding, stop chasing an imaginary version of love, and finally appreciate the real woman standing in front of us. And that realization can change everything, because love is not about finding someone who checks every box on your list. It is about discovering that some boxes were never important in the first place. You thought you needed someone who always agreed with you, but maybe you needed someone brave enough to challenge you. You thought you needed someone who never became emotional, but maybe you needed someone who could teach you to feel more deeply. You thought you needed someone who would make life easy, but perhaps what you really needed was someone who would make life meaningful. There is a difference. Easy is not always valuable. Meaningful is met. The woman who is perfect for you may sometimes make you uncomfortable, because she sees things in you that you don't want to see. She may tell you when your behavior is wrong. She may refuse to pretend that everything is okay when it isn't. She may push you toward responsibility when you would rather escape. She may ask you to communicate when you'd rather stay silent. And sometimes you may think, why can't she just leave me alone? But years later, you may look back and realize, she helped me become the man I needed to become. Klumbanidiu Amin Didi. That is a different kind of love. It isn't always soft. Sometimes love tells you the truth. Penal meaning beamy-ish. Sometimes love says, you're better than this. Sometimes love says, you need to apologize. NBNDN. Sometimes love says, don't give up. Sometimes love says, I'm hurt, but I'm willing to talk. And sometimes love says, I believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Those words can change a life. Our things, don't treat them like they are replaceable. In what way? Mons, you could speak. We live in a culture that makes leaving look easy. One disagreement, one disappointing moment, one difficult season, and someone says, maybe there is somebody better? Better? Then better according to whom? And better. So if you have a woman who believes in you, don't take that lightly. There are millions of people who will celebrate you when you're successful. But the person who believes in you when you're struggling, when you're uncertain, when you failed, when you don't know what comes next, that person is rare. MD protect Arindi your entire life comparing people and still never find someone without problems. Benjuro, because every person comes with a history, every person comes with insecurities, every person has habits you won't understand. Blam Bleens, every person has emotional baggage. Every person will eventually disappoint you. Well, the question isn't, can I find someone who will never disappoint me? The better question is, can I find someone whose heart I can trust enough to work through disappointment with? Mander, that changes the entire meaning of love, because the goal isn't zero conflict. The goal is healthy repair. But the goal isn't never hurting each other. Mian, the goal is learning how to heal after you've hurt each other. The goal isn't having no differences, and the goal is respecting each other despite those differences. And perhaps the most important question is this: when she is imperfect, do you still treat her like someone valuable? Blanche, because anybody can be kind when they're getting what they want. Character appears when you're disappointed. Lenge, your true love appears not when she's dressed beautifully and smiling across the dinner table, but when she's tired, frustrated, insecure, sick, worried, or afraid. Menza, what do you do then? You made Cecily a pear shant. What do you do then? Do you become impatient? Do you mock her? Do you withdraw affection to punish her? Or do you remember that this is a human being you once promised to care for? And that's where love becomes real, and this doesn't mean she gets a free pass either. You deserve respect too. Baines, you deserve kindness, you deserve honesty, you deserve emotional safety. Mand, you deserve a partner who doesn't manipulate your love, exploit your loyalty, or repeatedly hurt you without accountability. And real love isn't blind. Real love sees clearly. It sees the beauty and the flaws. It sees the strengths and the weaknesses. It recognizes what can be repaired and what cannot. And sometimes loving someone means having difficult boundaries, but when two people are genuinely committed to becoming better together, imperfections don't have to become walls. They can become doors. A weakness becomes an opportunity for patience. A disagreement becomes an opportunity for understanding. A mistake becomes an opportunity for accountability. A difficult season becomes an opportunity to discover what you're really made of, and after enough years, you may realize that the strongest relationships aren't the ones that never break. Beans, they're the ones that know how to bend without breaking. They learn, they adapt, they forgive, they communicate. Dimensions, they grow, and most importantly, they keep choosing each other, not blindly, not desperately, consciously, every morning, every difficult season, every unexpected turn. That is what commitment really means. It means that when the excitement becomes quieter, you don't assume the love is gone, because love changes. Lent, at the beginning, love can feel like fireworks. Later, it can feel like warmth. Lambs, at first, you may stay awake talking until 3 in the morning. Amends, years later, you may sit quietly in the same room, each doing your own thing. And somehow that silence feels just as intimate. Benny, at first, you may miss each other after a few hours. Later, you may simply feel peace knowing that she's in the next room. That isn't less love. That's mature love. The fire didn't disappear. It became a steady flame. And maybe that's the love people should talk about more. The love that survives ordinary days. The love that doesn't need an audience. The love that doesn't need social media approval. And the love that isn't trying to prove anything. Main, the love where two people can sit together in silence and still feel connected. Fam, the love where you can grow old without becoming strangers. It's the love where one day you look across the room and realize that the person who used to make your heart race has become the person who makes your heart feel safe. And that's beautiful. And if you're fortunate enough to have that kind of woman in your life, don't wait for a special occasion to honor her. Jen, don't wait for Valentine's Day. Don't wait for an anniversary. Len, don't wait until something scares you into realizing how temporary life can be. Tell her now? Look at her. Veins. Put your phone down, give her your full attention, and say something simple. I'm grateful for you. Men, I know you're not perfect. And neither am I. But I choose you. Me, and those words may cost you only a few seconds, but they may stay in her heart for years. And gentlemen, never underestimate what appreciation can do to a relationship. Mains, sometimes a woman isn't asking you to buy her the world. She wants to know that you notice her world. Men, notice when she's tired, notice when she's trying, notice when she's worried. Men's, notice when she's pretending to be strong, notice when she needs encouragement.